want to thank everybody for joining us today. This is the third session that we have of our award lifecycle series. This is the award receipt and negotiation. So in our award lifecycle, this is going to be after the proposals have been put in, and we have heard that we're going to be getting an award. And so we're going to be that period when right before we get the award and when we get the award, and then what happens after the award happens with any sub-awards that might be on a project. So that is the space that we are looking at today. And sorry. So I'm going to introduce myself. My partner, Catherine O'Hare, is on leave right now, so it's just me. I'm one of the training and information coordinators here at the Office of Sponsored Programs. And then I'm going to have our two presenters today introduce themselves. So how about Kelly?
Hi, I am Kelly Reif-Stenzel. I am a senior research administrator in the Office of Sponsored Programs. I primarily support Warner College of Natural Resources, but our portfolio spreads pretty wide. So thank you for coming.
I am Chris Miller. I'm the outgoing sub-award manager, and the sub-award team manages all of the outgoing subs from cradle to grave, including the invoicing. So I too am happy you're here.
And I am very appreciative for these subject matter experts coming today to talk to you about this space. And just to show you what our agenda is going to be today. Okay, so again, we talked just a little bit about what the award lifecycle is. And the award lifecycle is, again, that time period from where you're developing this idea, going all the way through the management of an award once it's been received, and all the way to closeout when you've finished that award completely and you've done your final reports and it's all completed. So we depict this award life cycle in this circular motion because we want people to understand that if you do all these things in this strategic, compliant, collaborative, and responsible manner, that one award can actually lead to your next award. So it's important for us to understand that each award is its own thing. I'm not saying that one award is going to become another one and that they're meshed together. They're not. We have to look at them separately. But I do want people to understand that one award can lead to another, because when we do things well, when we do things compliantly and in the way that we're supposed to, that it's a good thing. Okay, so when we talk about roles and responsibilities, it's always important to understand who does what on an award. Sometimes I think that is hard for our PIs and our researchers and the people who are working on these to know when it is, what it is they're supposed to be doing, and then what should be done centrally, etc. So we do have we have responsibilities matrix, roles and responsibilities matrices, and I have the URL here, and again, you're going to be getting this as a PDF so that you'll know how to find it on our website. But we've kind of spelled out these things by each section of the award lifecycle. And so the ones that I have highlighted here, and I know these are really hard to read, these are small. I'm not meaning for you guys to be reading these necessarily, but just to know that we do have these on our website. And it's a good place to go if you're not sure who should be doing what on something. So we have this for our award, the post-submission follow-up, which is going to be like just-in-time information. Then we have the award receipt and negotiation space. And then we also move forward. We have another matrix on the subcontracting and subaward. So again, if you're not sure exactly who should be doing what, this is a really great resource on our web pages for you to go and take a look at. Okay. So I'm going to turn this over to Kelly.
Thanks, Shannon. As you may have guessed from kind of the recent turmoil, CSU is Primarily funded by federal funding. Now, this can be direct federal funding, so coming directly from a federal sponsor, or it can be flow through from, so we are a subaward on an agreement that is federal funding. Let's see, federal awards run the gamut, really. They can be contracts, they can be grants, cooperative agreements. We have a new agreement type for CSU that's being accepted at this point. It's called it's an IGSA, Intergovernmental Support Agreement. So we accept pretty much anything, to truth be told, as long as it's in an official agreement format. For a quick overview, grant agreements tend to be the most flexible. It's funding and it's go do research typically, and send us your results. Send us what you find out. A cooperative agreement, which we do a fair amount as well, they are like they sound. It's a cooperation, excuse me, the sugar's starting to hit. Cooperation between the federal sponsor and CSU. So our PIs, our employees, work very closely with the federal sponsor to reach the desired outcome. We also have contracts. We see these a fair amount from DoD. We see these from Department of Energy, a fair amount. Our big federal sponsors right now are NSF and NIH. NSF typically does grants. They grant grants. NIH does all types. We see mostly cooperative agreements from them, but we do see the whole gamut as well. A contract. Touch on contracts just a little bit. Contracts are pretty restrictive and do not follow the uniform guidance. They're governed under the FAR, Federal Acquisitions Regulations. We do have a federal or contracting officer on the OSP team, that's Adam Donzie. So if an agreement comes in and it is a federal contract, you will most likely be working with Adam rather than your normal SRA. And we also work very closely with federal labs. And those are typically contracts as well. Shannon, am I forgetting anything on that one? For feds. Let's see. We also do nonprofits. We get a lot of agreements from nonprofits. We get a lot of agreements from other higher education institutions. We also get a lot of agreements from other governmental agencies, entities, so cities, states, municipalities. And we also get a lot of industry. It is our smallest bucket, but we do a fair amount of industry work. So these are often service-related agreements for expertise that we have here at CSU. Just-in-times. Some sponsors use just-in-time requests to gather information. NIH is a big one who does this. So a proposal is submitted. It's gone through the entire CSU process. It's been submitted to NIH. There is often information in those proposals that NIH doesn't require at that stage, but will require before the award. Those requests typically happen, for that information typically happen after NIH has reviewed the proposal, gone through everything, and now need further information either to make a decision or to go forward with an award. These they're called just in time for a reason. They do typically have pretty short turnaround times, and they can be for anything from IACUC, your risk protocols, further information on PIs, CVs, biosketches, that kind of thing, updated budgets, questions on if there's equipment in the budget, all that kind of stuff can be a just in time. So if you get one, please, please, please loop in your DRA or your OSP team as soon as possible so we can get that information out to them as timely as possible. Okay, this is my bread and butter. This slide is my day-to-day work. So what happens when we get an award, when CSU receives an award? The award documentation or a modification to an existing award is received from OSP. Sometimes it comes directly from the sponsor, sometimes it comes from the PI. The sponsor sent it to the PI, and now the PI is forwarding on to us. Whoever within OSP gets that, and it's typically going to be somebody on your specific OSP team. So in most cases, it's me. Sometimes it can be the RA. Once we get that documentation, we send it on to the OSP post-award team for award intake and processing. At that point, the post-award team sets up what we call a negotiation record. This is a record that we use to track where things are in an award negotiation and signature process. Once that record is set up, I am then notified, or your SRA will be notified of that negotiation record number, and it goes into our queue for review. We review all the documents that have been provided. We review against the award document. So everything in the KRPD gets reviewed against the award document. If we have questions, there's internal information missing, we will reach out to the PI directly to get that information. Once we have everything that we need for from the internal side, we start then negotiating terms and conditions with the sponsor. We don't negotiate every award. Most awards that I see don't require it. The terms and conditions are standard. They are things that CSU readily accepts. So at that point, I will sign or accept the agreement if it is fully executed when it comes my way, and move on to the next stage, which is setting up a 5-3 account. So work can start. Once I have everything I need, I send the award documentation and the negotiation record over to our OSP award setup team. That is the team that handles any 5-3 setup, any changes to existing agreements. They manage all of that. And once they're done with their process, the PI and the financial officer of record for that particular PI will receive an automated email with the 5-3 account number. At that point, you can start spending, you can start working. Okay. The $1 million question a lot of times is, where is my award? Where is my 5-3 start, or my 5-3 number? So the first few things that can delay an award happen on the sponsor side. So a lot of our sponsors will not issue new awards or new modifications if there are overdue project reports. So it's really important that PIs keep up with the project reporting. They will also withhold an award if there is any sort of missing documentation. If we're missing IACUC or, again, a CV, it's often a holdup. If there are budget discrepancies, if they have concerns about invoicing, what's been invoiced, those issues typically fall into allowable versus unallowable, or things that came up as a surprise for them. The other thing that we see that slows down receiving an award from sponsors is their own workloads. Federal sponsors in particular have workloads that are pretty heavy, and so it can delay things. Reality of living today, I suppose. Things to help mitigate that: make sure you follow all the guidance when you are developing your proposal, so that all the documentation is there, so that there's no reason for the sponsor to delay reviewing your proposal. When you get communication, if you get communication from the sponsor, please send it to OSP. We would much rather get an email multiple times with information from the sponsor than not get it at all. So please go ahead and forward it. Please make sure that the documentation in the KRPD record matches what the sponsor needs and requires. That the KRPD is our proposal system of record. So what's in KRPD is what will get sent to the sponsor. Whenever you can, please start working on your protocols as soon as possible. IACUC, IRB, IBC, as soon as possible. I know there's a balance there between putting work into that and maybe not getting the funding, but any work you can do up front at proposal stage or between proposal and award really speeds up the process for getting your spending account. And please get back to your OSP team as quickly as you can if they send questions. They may be internal only questions. They may be just in time from the sponsor kind of questions. So please go ahead and respond to those as soon as you can, or let us know that you're working on them so that we can then work with the sponsor on timelines if necessary.
Kelly, can I clarify one
Please.
bullet point? That first one in the administrative column that we have for overdue project reports, that's not an overdue project report necessarily for this project. We're talking about any project reports or any other funding that you might have with that sponsor. So if you have another award or another project with that sponsor and you have an overdue project report, it can affect any new proposals or awards that you have going in. So I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't for this necessarily for the award that's coming in, but the sponsors are getting really proactive about this, and some of them are not even allowing people to put in proposals if they have overdue reports with that sponsor. So just wanted to emphasize that just a little bit.
Thank you. All right, the next big question we get is, where's my 5.3 account? And here are the things that can delay a 5.3 account. So again, missing documentation. Compliance is a big one. So IRB, IBC, IACUC, those are big ones. And those processes can take a while. So we cannot set up a spending account until we have a compliance determination one way or another. Your quality research proposal development, KRPD record, needs to be fully complete and approved at the very least up to OSP. Prefer them to be fully approved, but we understand that sometimes that's not possible. That will delay an account. If there's cost share on an agreement, there is documentation that we need. We do need cost share forms for that. And there are two separate cost share forms. There's a general cost share form, and then there is the 1% non-reportable salary cost share form. We need those before we can ask for a 5.3 account. Work in progress forms. We need those before we can request a 5.3 account. Subawards. Subawards are next topic, which Chris will tell you everything you need to know about subawards. If we don't have all the documentation for me to request a subaward, it's going to delay that subaward being set up. You do need a 5.3 in order to do that. So when I send out an email, all the SRAs send out an email requesting the documentation that they need. Please go ahead and respond as soon as possible with that. Another one, many projects are interdisciplinary. So we have PIs from multiple units, multiple colleges that are providing input. In order to set up a 5.3 account, we are going to need to know either if the units and the PIs are opting to do a IDC split, and there's a form for that, of course, or if they want individual 5.3 accounts set up for each PI. That is not an issue. We can most certainly do that, but we do need individual budgets for each of those accounts. So If we don't have those, we can't set up the accounts. And the last thing that we want to highlight here is heavy workloads. OSP is growing, but we have not grown enough to keep pace with the research at CSU, unfortunately. So, and there are certain times of years that are busier than others. So federal fiscal year end is, as you can imagine, a very, very busy time of the year for us, with 77% or whatever of our funding coming from feds. So there's going to be heavier workloads that are going to delay a 5.3 account setup. Some of the things that you can do to mitigate these delays, again, follow all the guidance when you are doing your submission and developing your proposals. Complete your annual COI disclosure when prompted. This is a big one. We cannot set up a 5.3 account if your COI, your conflict of interest disclosure, is not up to date and approved. Get your protocols ready as much as you can early on. Provide any of the internal documentation that we're requesting. Those individual budgets, CSA forms, cost share forms. Please have some patience with us. Again, all the sponsored program funding is coming through our office, so there's a lot coming in at us. We are working through things as quickly as we can and making sure that everything is signed appropriately. PIs and department folks do not have authority to sign agreements. So that authority rests with a rather small group of people, and OSP SRAs in particular are one of those groups of people. So I cannot set up a 5.3 account if I get an award that's not signed by me or someone within OSP. So please, 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 if you're getting award documents from sponsors, please send them our way for review and signature.
So one of the documents that I am going to be sending out that Kelly has put together is a kind of a go-to on how to look at where your award is in the cycle, in that walkthrough. So I'll be sending that out via email after the fact, because there are some searches that you can do in as the PI of a proposal. There are some searches that you can do to go and take a look to see where that negotiation is, and where it's at. So we have that resource that will be going out. So this is just a reminder to everybody that every single proposal has compliance, and whether or not you have an IACUC or an IRB, which not all do, every single proposal has to have a conflict of interest annual report by the PIs done. So just a remembrance that that has to be completed. And like Kelly said, we cannot set up an award. We make this promise to our federal sponsors that we will not set up awards for PIs if we do not know where their conflict of interest is, or if there is a problem on a conflict of interest, that there's a mitigation plan in place. So just there is compliance on every proposal. And just a quick reminder of where our compliance offices are, if you need to go and take a look at those. We have quite a few under the umbrella of the OVPR. So go into the OVPR's website and get familiar with it, because there is a lot. And depending on your proposal, you may be touching 1, 2, 3, 4 of these offices. So, and again, Sponsored Programs does not do the compliance pieces. We have people over in these compliance offices who does all this, but we have to get information from those offices in order to move forward with your award and making an account. So very important. Chris, we're going to turn it over to you.
Okay. I'm going to start in the strategic column of this slide, because when starting to think about who you're going to collaborate with on especially a federal award, you want to make sure that you're looking at sub versus vendor determination first. We want to make sure that they get classified correctly right away, because if your indirect cost rate is calculated at MTDC, meaning we only charge indirect on the first 25,000 of the subaward. If it makes it all the way to my team and we review it and find that this subrecipient really should be a vendor because let's say it's a small business, they're doing the same work they do in the normal course of business, and they have profit, maybe they're doing data analysis for you versus we'll get more into the details of what's what, but you just want to make sure that you're classifying them correctly at the start so that your budget doesn't get affected after award. Because we will push back if one comes to us as a subaward and it really should be a vendor, then we will push that back. But once you establish your relationship, it's going to be a subaward. You want to work with your collaborator. We're going to need the same documents as we submit, so a budget, scope of work, and budget justification. We also need the subrecipient commitment form. And if you're working under an NIH award and have a foreign subrecipient, we're going to need the NIH supplemental commitment, which states that they agree that they will submit all of their lab notebooks and data on an annual basis. NIH, this is a fairly new, it rolled out last year. They're going to, at some point, at any point, could ask for that to make sure that we are following that. So at proposal, we want those foreign subrecipients to acknowledge that they're able and agree to do that and provide that information. So when the subaward gets to us, we do a risk assessment of every subrecipient. So at proposal, if you are working with a small business or a small nonprofit or a foreign subrecipient that might be, for the most part, outside of the European Union, it doesn't hurt to contact us and have us do a pre-award risk assessment to see if we think they're going to be high risk. If they're going to be high risk, on the foreign subrecipient side especially, we might ask for approval to have a fixed amount subaward. So then their budget and scope of work would be broken into tasks or deliverables with an associated dollar amount. This helps reduce our risk because the task has to be completed before they can invoice for it. And then it's also good for a lot of the foreign subrecipients because they're not required to provide any backup documentation. So for a lot of some of the South African or in the African region, some of our subawards, they're very small and remote, and asking for receipts can be very challenging. So the fixed amount subaward is a good option to both reduce CSU's risk and to help the foreign subrecipient not have to try and collect a bunch of receipts and backup documentation that they don't have really the ability to do very easily. So this is the NIH policy that requires that foreign subrecipients provide copies of all lab notebooks, all data, and all documentation that supports the research outcomes with a frequency of no less than once per year. So, and this does fall on our PIs to ensure that this information is getting collected. So if you have any questions about it during the project period, don't hesitate to reach out and we'll help you with it. So here's where the sub versus vendor determination comes into play. So a subrecipient, one of the easiest ways to think about it is they're carrying out a part of your program, part of your research. They're making decisions they're not providing just a good or service. So if they're just providing a service, it's very likely that they might fall into the vendor category. A subrecipient has the authority to make administrative and programmatic decisions and control the method that they're using when they're doing the research. A vendor is providing a product or service. It does the same, they're doing the same type of work that they would do for any of their clients. They're not making programmatic decisions. They might be able to advise a little bit, but they're not contributing to the research or the overall outcome of the project. And one thing to remember, especially when you're working with small businesses, under federal funding, they are not allowed to take a profit. So any small business, for-profit business that is getting classified as a subrecipient or under a subaward, we will ask for confirmation from them that they did not include a profit in their budget. If we did, then we're going to have a deeper discussion as to whether they need to be pushed back to run through procurement. A consultant is an individual or entity who has very specific expertise, and they're just giving highly specialized assistance to the project. They don't develop any of the objectives, and for the most part, it's like it says, consulting. They're just giving advice, but they're not making any decisions. So the subaward process. The subaward process starts when you have a 5-3. The PI needs to complete the PI request to initiate a subaward and sends that over to the OSP Senior Research Administrator that they work with. That will kick off within OSP the process that we use. So the SRA will collect all of the information, all of the proposal documents, subcommitment form, and anything else we need. They answer a bunch of terms questions that assist us in completing the draft of the subaward agreement, and then they send it over to the subaward team. Once we get that, we perform our risk assessment, and when we have the level needed or a level of risk assigned to it, then we draft the subaward. The risk level will determine what kind of additional terms might be in there to help us mitigate that risk. So if we have a high risk domestic subrecipient, we request or require that they submit backup documentation with their invoices so that we can make sure that what they're invoicing aligns with what their accounting system shows. We've sent out the draft subaward, any negotiation is done and it's fully executed. Then I complete a requisition request to start the PO process. So that goes off to the fiscal officer. Once that requisition makes it through all of the approvals, it routes back to OSP. We actually manage all of the purchase orders for subawards. So if you ever have a subaward PO that you're looking to have closed, you can shoot me an email versus whoever you would normally send it to. I don't know, accounts payable, I suppose. They would normally send it to us for review anyway. So if you ever have a PO you think is ready to be closed, just contact us and we'll take a look at it. So once the fully routed requisition gets to us, the PO is created, and then the subrecipient invoicing can start to be paid as it's received. All right, as invoices come in, they're reviewed first by our outgoing subaward invoicing team. We have two, Kayla and Steve, both review invoices. If there's any questions or missing data, they work with the subrecipient to get an updated invoice, and then it gets sent over to the PI for review and approval. And The review and approval by the PI is a really important part of our risk assessment. It's like an ongoing risk review, right? So we're making sure that work is getting done and the amounts being invoiced are appropriate. If you're ever working with a subrecipient and you're having issues with communication, or you don't think the work is getting done, or the expenses don't seem appropriate or in line with the amount of work you think they've done, then don't approve the invoice. There's a section in there where you can disapprove and put a comment as to why you're not approving it, and then you can send it back to OSP. If it is a invoicing allowability type situation, then we can reach out to the subrecipients, invoicing people, and see if we can get that worked out. If it's a matter of performance, you're not getting deliverables, or you're not getting data, communication is poor, then we ask that the PI work directly with the subrecipient PI. But if you don't get any kind of response or clarity, then you can reach out to me and I will contact the subrecipient's Office of Sponsored Programs and try and work with them to get a resolution. So, but we don't want, if you approve invoices all along and then at the end say, no, they didn't complete the work, it's a little too late to really be able to correct it. Mid-project, if your project receives an amendment, you work with your OSP team, and then they will send us what's called an auth to amend, which contains any information for amending the subrecipient's current award.
I did want to say that, because I think that Kelly and I talked about this earlier, that sometimes I think that this handoff between our SRA and the subaward team is hard to understand. So while I want to say that while our subaward team really doesn't start working on these subawards until after an account is made, that doesn't mean that the PIs and the people that are working with them in the departments and units can't start getting all this information together as soon as they find out that they're getting an award. But the subawards are made after the 5.3 account has been created. So the account has to be created, and then this is the next step. So those subawards, as soon as the award is received at CSU, I know a lot of times the PI and the PIs of the subaward are starting to talk and getting very excited about the work that they're going to be done. But there is that additional step that has to be done. So, and they aren't created in a day. So again, understanding that piece, but it doesn't mean that you can't start working on getting all those pieces together as soon as you find out you're getting an award. So that's part of that strategic thinking that I want people to be thinking about.
What causes delay at subaward setup? You know, a lot of times I'm going to say for new subrecipients, especially the foreign ones, the risk assessment portion can hang things up. Communication, language barriers, maybe they may not understand what exactly we're requesting. And that goes actually for a lot of small businesses too. So that can cause a delay. If we're missing information, or if there's a scope of work that is lacking substance, it's really important that scopes of work are more than a couple of sentences. You know, you want to keep in mind, you know, if things were to go poorly with your collaborator, would we be able to hold them to what they said they were going to do? So, you know, if you can include the deliverables, you know, I see a lot of scopes of work that start with a whole big paragraph about the subrecipient PI's knowledge and expertise in the field of whatever they're working on, and then a very small paragraph about what they're actually doing. So we just want to make sure that you're giving we're receiving doesn't have to be super long, but just really needs to capture what their responsibilities are. And if you have specific timelines of when you need, like maybe data from them, you want to include that in there as well. If you have a subrecipient that claims indirect cost above the de minimis rate, but they don't, when it gets to us, we find out they don't actually have a rate agreement, that's going to delay things because we're going to need to have them redo their budget and get that all sorted out. Of course, if it gets to us and it's not a subaward, it's really more of a procurement action, then that's going to delay it because it's going to delay getting it to procurement and getting them moving on it. The PI request to initiate the subaward, it really contains a lot of important information for us in regard to, animal or human subjects research, if they're working with biohazard materials. If we see conflict between what the PI request to issue says there versus their subcommitment form, that can cause a little delay because we have to get clarification if they really are working with humans. Also, if we don't know, we need to include in our subawards whether or not, for instance, if there's a single IRB, that's something that we really need to know. So it's good to capture that information in the PI request to initiate. And of course, no unique entity ID. I think people are doing a pretty good job of capturing this for their from the subrecipients at proposal lately. We haven't been having too many get to us without a UEI, but that can, or initially especially, it did cause some delays. So you just want to make sure good lines of communication. We work very closely with our OSP teams to try and get clarification, but you might be getting emails directly from us to find out, get more specifics on reporting and what you need in order to fulfill your reporting requirements. And we do work as fast as we can. We do have subawards have really expanded. It can take up to 2+ weeks, especially if there are any delays to get those out. But we try to work as quickly as possible. Here is the PI request to initiate. This is, you want to make sure that the top could potentially be filled out by a department administrator, but it really is important that the PI is filling out 5, 6, and any below that, especially the information about compliance. And one other thing we've found lately that is causing some delays is when the subrecipients do not have responsible conduct of research training program. So especially they tend to be small, and a lot of them are under USDA. But we have to make sure that they complete that RCR training. So we send it off to our RCR people, they get them hooked up, and then we don't issue the subaward until that training is done. Or we don't, I should say, we do issue the subaward, but we won't pay invoices. But the RCR training does have to get done. As part, like I said earlier, as part of the subaward management, the PI reviewing invoices is part of our risk assessment and really very critical to making and ensuring that everything is going smoothly for the project. Verifying the invoicing, we very rarely allow any delegates in very rare instances, so we really rely on the PIs to do that review and approval. If there are any changes in a subaward mid-project, if you know that your subrecipient PI is leaving their institution, the sooner we know that, the better, because we do require a 30-day notice to terminate any subaward. If you're leaving CSU, notification to your OSP team. So those changes, especially if there's a subaward, can all get filtered down in a timely manner is really important too. We want to make sure that we're getting, final invoices and received and approved in a timely manner so that we can get your award closed out. It's really just about everyone working closely together. When you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. Be patient with us when we ask questions, because we would rather make sure we're issuing a subaward correctly than find out down the road that we missed something.
There is a question from Anne, and it says, is the RCR associated with an individual or an organization?
It's an individual. It is, I believe it's each individual working, each senior individual working on the project. It might not even just be senior, it might be any research person working on the project. I'd have to look into that again.
I think some of that is sponsor driven, about who has to come do the RCR training. And I believe that there's a really good matrix potentially on our OVPR website under the RCR training and who needs to be covered under that. And that would then also apply to our subawards for the people that are working on theirs. So I am not an RCR expert in any way, shape, or form. That's why we have people who are, which is great. One thing that when we were talking about our subawards, and it's part of the strategic, and I wish that I had added it to this list, is that when you all are assembling your teams, and when I mean team, I mean the people who are going to be working with you here at CSU, or people who are going to be working with you outside of CSU, either in terms of a subaward, maybe it's a consultant, maybe it is a vendor potentially. One of those things, and it's this snake eating its tail. We need to learn from things that have worked, and sometimes you've never worked with people before, and you're thinking it's going to be great. But understand that when you're assembling this team, that all of you are working together, and you need to make sure that the team and the team dynamics are there, that you establish that. And if you worked with people in the past and things didn't go great, it doesn't bode well for the next project that something's going to go really well. So learn from past experiences. It's always important to know what worked and what didn't in previous awards, or talk to your mentors, talk to other people in units and find out how was it to work with these people, because we're talking about people that are going to have to do project reports with you, that are going to have to give you data potentially, under the NIH, and you have to be able to rely on those. And it's not just one person. So what worked? Learn from those things. What documents were required last time? What kind of communications, actions, and what caused delays last time? And try to remember what you did last time. And then if you don't remember, or if you've never done this before, communicate. That's what OSP and your team is all about, is asking those questions. So we don't want anyone to get frustrated, because we're all in this together, and working together really helps. And in that collaborative piece, who do I contact? Well, I put on here, we have a staff page on OSP's website, and we have 6 teams that are set up by units and departments, and they each have their own portfolio. So you have a specific person in your unit that you will be using for all of your proposal and awarding needs. And you can find that information on our website. Or you can also, we have our subaward team, our outgoing subaward team, and that is also on our staffing pages. So you can also contact those, and their contact information is on our pages. So with that, but really appreciate everyone coming today.